Hi everyone, Stephanie here from Healthie. Thank you for tuning in. We're a few minutes behind, but we're just going to wait for more people to join us.
Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm good. This is Muriel Doyle. I'm going to introduce her in just a minute, but more and more people are joining in. So we're just going to pause for a minute and we'll get started in just a minute.
Thank you, Stephanie. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to try to share again.
Okay.
And when I go to share, what I will do is to switch my screen to the view right here and see if it works.
Okay, great.
Now I'm going to share. And I'm going to share this one instead. How is it now?
Great. All right.
Does it work great? Is it supposed to look that way?
I see I can see the slide, can see the screen. So let's get started. Muriel, I'm going to introduce you. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If we just want to go to the first slide.
I need to go back to the first slide.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Welcome to Getting Started with Insurance. This webinar is specifically for dietitians and other wellness professionals who may be interested in accepting insurance in their practice. And the reason why we put this presentation together and what we're really going to accomplish today is we find that there are a lot of new providers out there who are unsure if accepting insurance is going to be the right path for their practice. And if they can even go through the motions of getting themselves set up with insurance and getting set up with billing. And today I'm Stephanie, I'm from Healthie, and I have Muriel Doyle here with me. She's an insurance-based practitioner. She has a very successful insurance-based practice with many insurance plans. She's a registered dietitian, a licensed dietitian, a certified diabetes expert, educator, and overall a wonderful resource on insurance billing and credentialing. So today we're really going to cover a lot of the contracting and credentialing process so that you can feel really confident in taking the steps to start to credential with insurance panels and know what that process will look like. So I'm going to turn it over to Muriel, and she's going to get started and take us through her background and her agenda.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Stephanie. And to introduce myself, I have about 30 years of professional work in the field as a dietitian. So I've been around the block and back in many areas of our practice. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I found myself in a small town in Texas where I could no longer see myself fully employed and at the mercy of all the policy, the regulation, and the schedule that it demanded. So I decided to go back in private practice, which I have always been either part-time or full-time, and I found Healthie as one of the platforms to allow me to do telehealth. I first wanted to do only packages and self-pay because insurance was a very scary world for me. I did not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But I realized that it was actually a possibility for me to earn money because I'm in an area where diabetes and obesity is rampant, and in Texas it is well covered by most insurance. So the experience that I have here is not 30 years of practice as an insurance provider. What I have to offer here is my experience in the recent world. What happened over the past couple of years on how you get a contract with insurance 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or now, and how you negotiate those rates so it's actually in your best interest. And I have refused some contract because at the end, I did not want to work at loss. The agenda of today, we of course going to look at the benefit of accepting insurance, but also the challenges to RD in accepting insurance. What are the hoops that you're going to have to jump through, and how you can compensate the time that it takes to jump through and sometimes be denied, so you can stay afloat with your expenses. Is accepting insurance right for your business? It's not for everybody, so we're going to help you maybe to ask certain questions that will help you make your decision better. How do you research which companies to work with in your area? Because some companies have more active network than others. An overview of the credentialing process, the basics of contract negotiation, the recommended tools for insurance billing, and the benefit of using an EHR platform for CMS 1500 claim submission. And finally, the question and answer. Stephanie will tally those questions, and hopefully we will still have enough time to answer them live. Otherwise, I will be happy to answer those by email later on. I really want this presentation to be factual and to be a tool for you to feel confident in becoming an insurance provider. The disclosure here, this presentation is hosted in conjunction with Healthie, an EHR practice management platform for dietitian. This information is presented here as my own experience in private practice. I take full liability of every word that comes out of my mouth. So let's start. What are the pros to accepting insurance? The drive referral and new business to your practice. To this day, I do not prospect to physician. I have found that my two best source of information is actually the network, because I have found that people do ask their insurance who is in network, either directly on the website, because insurance are required to publish and to update. So as an in-network provider, every single insurance are going to require you to update your location of office as well as your demographics. And other platforms such as Medicare or Ability or Office Ally will also ask you to update that information. Another platform is Health Prof. It is for a fee, but it has generated quite a bit of referral for me. So most of my clientele actually reach out to me directly. It's not through a physician, and that's why it's important on this platform that you advertise which insurance you actually take. It saves you time with phone calls of prospect that actually would not qualify as proper client for your practice. An easier collaboration with the MD or other wellness professional, because they're more likely to refer to someone that carries insurance. The likelihood to be more consistent with your client base. When your client base, your demographic may be of average mean, they may not be able to afford a full package of several hundreds of dollars up front. Or even monthly payments. So having several sessions, for example, Aetna offers a very complimentary package of 10 sessions under preventive care. So there's no deductible and no copay for the patients who have obesity or overweight with one other criteria of a chronic illness, such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure. So being able to deliver 10 sessions for free is quite attractive to a prospect client versus asking them to pay $1,000 for your fee. You can also, it also allows you to provide affordable nutrition care without sacrificing your own income. You don't have to do a sliding scale or provide free services. I added here that the insurance may reimburse up to $38 per 15-minute increment, and $38 is the average reimbursement rate by Medicare right now. It may be more or less, but it's a good baseline for you to negotiate your fee afterward, and this is for the initial session, by the way. So what are the barriers to accepting the insurance? Well, first is the limited education for RDs. I never learned that in school. And ADA has limited information. It was not enough. I had to go in the trenches and figure it out by myself, which was very hard. And I luckily reached out to a couple of my colleagues that were willing to help me out in finding where to call and how to navigate through the period of waiting, and as well how to face a denial. Knowing how to communicate with insurance, it's always about where you find the person that has decision power, not the intermediary, not the customer service. It's a good start, but it is not the person to do much work. How to calculate your bottom line and fees so you can negotiate fair fee. What's the point of accepting insurance if your business is at loss when you accept to see those patients? So is insurance right for you? And some question to keep in mind that can help you decide if insurance versus self-pay is right for you to structure your practice is, do you have to be a salesperson? And my answer is no. Unfortunately, again, in school of nutrition, we are not taught that what we offer is a service and it's part of a sale transaction. So we are not geared up towards seeing ourselves as sale people, but in fact, by nature, we do. Maybe a way to see our work instead of calling ourselves salesperson is to see ourselves as problem solver. We make a living out of solving problems, and those problems are big problems that require big compensation. Considering your niche, is insurance or self-pay better? For myself, I started with self-pay because I needed an active, ongoing revenue, and taking insurance is a long, lengthy process. To be on 7 panel, it took me 2 years. Most likely, it's going to take you at least 3 or 4 months to get on each of them, if not longer. So if you need a source of income, I think Healthie is a wonderful platform that can help you very easily at a minimum cost to start up taking self-pay client either by session or to offer them packages. Now, who are your true competitor? It's a great question, and that's where we cannot let fear take over. Just because a hospital is taking patients with insurance or you have a thriving practice next door does not mean that you will not have business. You have to find your niche, and your niche is not necessarily the skill that you develop as a professional. Your niche may also be your approach. Maybe you have a way to communicate that is friendlier or different than the staff in that specific practice. And every individual is unique, and they may respond better to your own personality or your own flexibility of managing the issue that that person may deal with. So we all have gifts. And deciding whether someone in the same business is a true competitor just through our professional skills would be limiting ourselves to venture into a world of possibility. So knowing ourselves and what we have to offer in a holistic fashion is super important to really decide whether or not it's for you and who your market is and whether you're going to be successful. How much do you want to get paid? So that's the $1 million question. If you want to, there's a max on how you can generate money, because if you accept only this much money per hour and you multiply that by the number of hours you want to work in the office, right there you have a cap. When you increase your hourly rate with self-paid package, of course, it might be much higher. So it depends on what your situation is, but the benefit of accepting insurance is the recurring patient coming to you without having to prospect much, because they find you on those insurance panel, they call you, because they found you on Google and they know that you accept the insurance. It's not going to cost them anything. So research your insurance panel. The very first step to insurance credentialing is to identify which insurance you want to accept. How do you do that? Well, you could look around. Who is your industry in your proximity, maybe your town or your city? But an important fact to know is that the region of most insurance will cover at least 75 miles radius. And with the telehealth possibility, such as in Texas, where the law is very strong and require all commercial plans to offer telehealth such as the same fashion as face-to-face visit, now you can reach out to a much greater territory than your own town. And you can compare what the true competitive competition is, as well as potential of earning by reaching out to other industries than your close 25 miles radius area. Think about your ideal client also. What insurance plan might they be using in your area? If you are into obesity, diabetes, and the chronic illness, I found that Blue Cross Blue Shield and Aetna have very comprehensive coverage. Now, United Healthcare seems to have a better coverage in my region for eating disorder, for example. So it's important to look at your ideal client. And something that I have to mention, as you research the industries of the large companies, you have to see if they're self-paying the insurance or if they're part of a big pool. Why? Because if they're self-funded, they make their own rules. They do not have to abide by the rules of ACA that provide preventive care at no deductible, no copay, nor state regulation. So even if they look like their plan is administered by Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or Cigna, you're still not going to get paid because they may be denied and they may be entitled to denied MNT even if the patient has diabetes and the state law require insurance to cover for it. So it's also an important question to inquire either with HR for that specific company. A good source of information about the largest employer in your area would be the Chamber of Commerce in your area. They would certainly know. So the first step to start the process of becoming an insurance provider is to log your information on a website that is called the CAQH. And when I did mine, I could not believe how extensive and detailed the questions were. So I advise to schedule going onto this website and create your profile on an evening where you're not going to have any distraction, no phone call to take, so you're not locked out when you did not save, as well as no distraction from maybe children. You may coerce your husband or a babysitter to take them out of the house. You may take your favorite snack, your glass of wine or a cup of tea, whatever make you feel comfortable, because they're not gonna ask you the date of graduation with the month and the year, but they're gonna require the day, as well as for your state licensure, and those kind of details may not be handy. So just be ready with this list of information, the professional training history where you did your dietetic internship, the full date, day, month, day, and year, the copy of your professional liability insurance. I did not have that one when I filled out my CAQH, if I remember. So I added the chat hours because I have found that the attestation of your information is a little bit tricky. So you fill out all that information, and it's not going to go through unless you attest that everything is true and just the truth. So I found that by sometimes saving your document at night and not driving yourself crazy figuring out on how to attest, but calling them or going through the chat, they're very helpful, they're very friendly. The very next day will save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. This is what the CAQH platform look like, and this is the first time here where you have to start your profile. So the application process for your insurance, for the insurance companies that you have identified, you want to become in network with, you will want to fill out their own application. Many of them will accept the CAQH information, but first they require you to either call their 800 number or to go on their website, because they always have a page called professional site or provider site. And I know that some have been successful to ask the customer service if they accept, but if they tell you no, I never take a no for an answer. I would still provide them my inquiry and really push, because I'm going to teach you how you could actually counteract the fact that they're going to tell you no and why. The state law is there to protect you as well as the consumer, and we have to use it. So after you have that first phone call, or you send them an email inquiring about being on the panel, we have to be patient, because sometimes it takes several weeks and sometimes it takes several months. I would start a form where you will record the website of the insurance, as well as the email where you send out your first inquiry. And if you get a reply with a first name on that email, I would also add that. So little by little, as you inquire to more insurance, you keep everything handy on one piece of paper. It's super useful. The keyword to look on the website is the network coordinator, or also if you're on the phone, you can ask for the network coordinator. Now this person is basically a middleman. That person is not the decision maker. This person will collect information about you and will discuss on your behalf at meeting later on whether or not you would be a suitable provider for that specific insurance. So she's not the person you have to get mad at. She's actually your ally. She's the one you have to talk sweet and be confident in your email correspondence, but be super friendly, because that person receives a lot of inquiries. And as we know, if you're sweet, she might pay a little more attention to your inquiry. So very important people to get along with and to friend with. This is a sample of the website United Healthcare, and as we go right here on the bottom, we can see, oops, let me go back to the slide right here. And as we can see, the network provider is right here on the bottom. So the contracting process, most insurance will not require you to fill out that package that they mail. It's no longer true. They will accept the CAQH information, which really ease that process, because one of the insurance had sent me a package, I swear, it was like 40 pages to fill out. So I highly encourage you to share that information on CAQH, just because it's faster to give them permission to access your CAQH data. And when you contract, you will receive a contract if you're accepted by the network. Now, the contract will not include your fee schedule, and you have to request one before you sign that contract. I still bite my finger that the very first contract I had was with Cigna. I did not do that, and to this day, it's my lowest payer. And trying to negotiate rate after having a contract, I found, is much more difficult than trying to make your case upon starting that relationship with that provider, because you never know how frequently they're going to adjust those fees. So we might as well have it right the first time. So how do you contract? How do you negotiate? How do you look at the fee schedule if they send it to you? I'm gonna share my screen here. Let's see if I can do this, because I need to switch to turn my phone off. I apologize for that. Let me see if I can share my screen here. And fee schedule. Okay. Can you see this, Stephanie? Can you see my document of fee schedule? Did it flip?
A presentation.
It did not flip. Okay. So let me see if I can try. And we still see the presentation. Okay.
What we can do is I'm going to stop the sharing for just a moment so you can bring up the page that you would like to share, and you can try and share again.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, I think it's going to help our audience here to relate to what I'm looking at. Let me see here. I have to bring. I'm having a little technical issue here, so I'm not seeing my window anymore. Here, you can go there, and now here. No, I'm not seeing. Oh, no, that's not the one. I apologize for that. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen with the slide right there. Here you go. So what I wanted to share with you was a sample of fee schedule that was recently sent to me by an insurance panel. And they send me all their fee schedule. So this document is 34 pages, and I had to fish the one that applied to my practice first. But the very first column had a default rate. And that one has pretty much 50% for every single rate. What it means is that the rate that is listed under the CPT code is actually slashed by 50% when you see your paycheck. So imagine that your rate, say $38 per 15-minute increment. That means that insurance will only pay you 50% of that $38. So don't accept just the column of CPT code. Look at whether or not there is a default rate, because it can vary. I have a default rate of 20%. I negotiated with Humana no default rate, so I want to be paid 100%, but with Cigna, which is my lowest payer, they do apply that 50% rate. So that's one thing. The other thing, some codes are very useful and very lucrative, but they may not bill by 50-minute increment. And there is no rules from one provider to another. The magic code is, I have the code right here. I put lots of exclamation points. It's the S9470, which I use. It's the code of nutritional counseling. I use it for preventive. And for my practice, for example, in Texas, I know that Blue Cross Blue Shield will reimburse that code by 15-minute increment and give me 100% of the fee schedule that was provided to me. Now, if I apply that code with United Healthcare, they don't bill by 15-minute increment, they bill by unit per day. So for example, if they say that they cover 100% when you check the benefit, and you do not know that it's by 1 unit per day, and you bill by 15-minute increment, if you bill 38 minutes per unit, you would expect to receive $152 for 60 minutes of your time. Unfortunately, they will process your claim as 1 unit per day. So you end up with $38, but they slash your fee by 50% default, and you end up with a check of $19. Those claims can be corrected, but it has to go through a process that may take you several weeks before you see your check for $152. So those are lessons that I think we can prevent by just asking your network coordinator as you receive the fee schedule clarification if those codes are by 15-minute increment or if they're by unit per day. In addition to the traditional MNT code 978020304, I also added the 270271 and the G0447Y. I'm a CDE, and through Medicare as well as other carrier, I have found that I can ask for more than 3 sessions if I can justify the need for the patient. And that justification should be simply that the patient does not understand the component of the diet. And I can get an additional 3 sessions, for example, for this patient. The trick is to have good documentation and not to abuse the system, but it's important to know that you're not limited to just 3 sessions for a patient with Medicare who has diabetes or CKD. You can get more sessions. The G0447 is a code used by Medicare only by a provider, but some insurance will actually accept that code under your NPI. So you may inquire with the commercial plan whether or not they're going to pay for it. Then I also added the code of 98966, 67, and 68. If you're not familiar with those codes, those are not telehealth, but they're phone call code. And for example, Cigna will pay for these phone calls, and they're billable by 10-minute increments. So this one is for 2 to 10 minutes, 11 to 20 minutes, or 21 to 30 minute phone call. And it has specific definitions, such as the phone call has to be initiated by the patient. It cannot be on an issue that you discuss within 7 days with your patient, or it cannot be prior a visit that you're about to have within 24 hours covering the issue that is discussed during that phone call. So again, looking at the criteria of accepting that phone call and how you document is crucial to get reimbursement for this phone call, but it can be a nice little additional income that you can have, and you can pick up this phone call from anywhere, not just when you're in your office. So negotiating your contract, even if an insurance panel say they rate are not negotiable, I believe that everything is negotiable, especially if those rates offer below the rate of Medicare. The people who are on the panel deciding whether or not they're going to accept you or whether or not they're going to pay you better are not professionals. Unfortunately, they do not respond to providing clinical outcome of MNT, whether it's cost effective. For them, the bottom line talks, whether money is going out of their wallet or not. And I have found to be more successful if I compare their fee with Medicare, Medicare being the standard of addressing fee issues with other providers. And so far, I have been successful in negotiating at least the Medicare fee, if not. And I have provided also the fee of other other providers without disclosing if it was Blue Cross Blue Shield or others. What I have done is to send them EOBs, and I just blocked the name of the insurance company as well as all the patient information, so they do see that they're way below market in my region. I found that finding the right person to negotiate those fees can be a little tricky, and taking a no from an answer never pays. So you have to push with the right question. If they say those rates are not negotiable, go back and say, I believe that they are. I believe that some other providers have been successful to present their case to a panel. What is the process of appealing this situation? And then you also ask for timeline. Ask them, when is the next meeting to review my inquiry? When can I get back with you? Don't expect them to just send you an email when they're done. They have gazillion of inquiries to answer. So having an expectation for them to know that you're going to call them or you're going to email them maybe a few days after the date of that meeting or that time frame puts a little bit of pressure on them to know that you're not letting go. You are here to stay. You want to work with them. You want to be fairly compensated, and you want to continue this conversation with them. So that, so far, that has been my approach. Now, when everything failed, I have reached out to the insurance commissioner in Texas, and I have been successful with one insurance to be on their panel going that route. The way I presented my case is that insurance claim on their website that they cover medical nutrition therapy, but they do not have an adequate network of provider in my region. If that insurance offer an ACA and a state regulated plan, they're required to put on their website for public access, not just a member of that insurance, but anybody can see who is in network with them. And the state has the statute that describe whether or not within your region that district that reach out will be 50 miles radius, 75 miles radius, and you may see that they have no providers within 50 miles radius. So you can argue that their network is not adequate, because it's not about you. It's about consumer protection when you go to the state insurance commissioner. And that you want to see, of course, you're a consumer. When you want to negotiate your fee, you become that consumer, but also not having provider when the state law requires them to have a certain adequacy of provider in every single region of that state becomes a much greater problem at a consumer level. And that's why the state will step in, and the state has a process where often the insurance, they contact the insurance directly and ask them, okay, what's the problem here? Why are you denying if you don't have anybody in that area? And they're required to answer to the state within 30 days. And the people who answer are usually at management level. So I have been successful in getting the attention of key people to get on a network where I was denied and where I could prove that the network adequacy was clearly inadequate. It's a good route to have. Also to negotiate contract, knowing that the state commissioner does not rule or oversee contract, because a contract transaction is a private transaction. But the angle that I have come is that the fee schedule were so low that it hurts me as a consumer, and it prevents me from becoming a provider on this network that has network deficiency. And I argue that it's actually a trick for insurance to not pay for the service that they claim they're offering under their benefit, but by not allowing providers adequate coverage, it denies them to actually work within that insurance, and therefore it denies the service from the customers that they get premium from. And so the state insurance commissioner went back to that insurance with my claim, and I was able to negotiate fees, at least the state and the Medicare fee with that insurance panel, while before they would accept me on the network, but they would not budge on their fee, which were drastically below, unreasonably below Medicare fees. So these two avenues are very useful to know how to navigate, and each state insurance commissioner website will list email or phone number to call. It's a fairly easy process. Once you go through CAQH, I think that everything else is fairly easy. Let's see, where are we here? Oh, now we are in network. What tools do you need? Well, the benefit verification is super important because, again, a patient may come with an insurance, you know that you're in network, but you do not know that that plan is self-funded. And the experience that you had with prior client carrying the same insurance administrator led you to believe that this service under that diagnosis would be covered, and boom, you're denied because you did not know that that plan was self-funded and they did not cover medical nutrition therapy. I have found Healthie to be very useful to verify whether or not the patient has insurance, and some insurance carrier offer the tool to basically do a dummy claim where you can put the ICD-10 code and the CPT code and see if it would be processed. But it's not always true. It's not a guarantee that they're gonna pay even if they say they're paying. So we have to take it with a grain of salt. For the majority of my clients, I do ask the patient to call their insurance because it puts some liability on them to hear what they have to say. And then I also call because I want to build a relationship with that patient. And I want to provide as much information as I can with the idea that if the insurance does not cover, hopefully I can convert that patient into a self-pay package that is still comprehensive and cost effective for that patient. So just because it's not covered by insurance, I'm not going to let go with that patient. I'm really going to try my best to help them out, solve their problem, and give them that deal that they cannot refuse through my self-pay package. So when I call, I have to go through that automated system where they always ask you for the ID, but also the date of birth of the patient. And you have to go through the generic request of benefit. And then you have to ask for customer service to ask for the detail on medical nutrition therapy under either preventive care, or if it's an office visit under diagnosis, that would be medical nutrition therapy. Talking to a real person is very useful because that person can release their name. And so I always write down in that little note section of Healthie the name as well as the ID of that person, if there is one, and the reference number of that talk and the content of that talk, because I was successful to reverse deny when provided that information as being contrary to my claim. So it's a little bit of time investment, but when you seek to build a relationship with your patient above and beyond one session, you actually invest in creating that relationship. You really show that patient that you've got their best interest in mind, that you understand how the insurance will bill for your services, and sometimes you will go that extra length to correct a bill that was denied and give a little bit of time before you charge that to the patient or you transfer that into a self-pay. The EHR platform that you use is super important because time is of the essence. You want to spend as much time you can actually doing therapy, because that's what you signed up for when you went to school, not to be a biller or a guru biller. And the efficacy of how you use those platforms is super important. I learned to navigate through Healthie, and it has helped me tremendously. This past year, the modification that they have done to their platform is such a time saver with no glitches. I can't remember the last time I had to place a phone call to them to figure things out. So it's been a slam dunk where I can do all my billing for one day, I would say within 10 minutes. And the EHR platform for billing is integrated into Healthie, which is super easy because right after you write your note, it directly sends you to the billing, whether it's a CMS 1500 or if it's a super bill that you have to send by email, or if you want to charge the patient with the credit card. Something that I really like with Healthie is that upon the patient signing on and filling out all these forms, the credit card can be required. And for me, it's not negotiable. I'm not accepting a patient without having an active credit card. So my policy includes a fee if there are no-show or a cancellation within 48 hours. And it's super easy to use that credit card after I send them a quick note. By the way, you missed your appointment despite the text and the email that you received. I will have to charge your credit card within the next 24 hours. I hope I hear back from you, something like that. And then also the copay, when the insurance comes back, I will charge the copay if I was not able to determine the copay prior to having that session. Something to know about insurance is that the majority of insurance will have in their contract that you're required to collect that copay at the time of the visit. So it's hard sometimes because insurance have co-insurance. It's not a copay, a slam dunk of $10 or $20, but because you do not know what the reimbursement will be, you cannot calculate the co-insurance, so you have to go retroactively with the credit card to charge that co-insurance. And what I really like about Healthie is that it has two easy systems that are linked to a clearinghouse called Office Allied, which I use. So up to last month, you had to make a batch with all your claim, and it was initiating a report, a text report that you could download into Office Ally. And then they take care of all your claim because each insurance provider has a key ID, and the clearinghouse basically spreads the billing to each insurance for you. Some insurance will not go through Office Ally. For example, United Healthcare has to be billed directly through United Healthcare. Then the novelty now with Healthie is that once the claim is processed, Healthie offer you to be able to dump back into your EHR all the information automatically. It's a real plus, because if you start adding clients, then you still have to enter that information manually. And it can be a little time consuming if you're a one-man show and do not yet have the cash flow to pay for someone to do it for you. So I'm very happy to know that Healthie has this integrated platform where there is a link between a clearinghouse and the EHR. It really facilitates the process of checking benefit, writing the notes about the benefits, so there is no other book to keep. Everything is integrated with the clinical note of the patient. You file the insurance from the same platform. You collect the information from your clearinghouse, and it goes back into your EHR. So at the end of the month, you can issue a report for accounting or for private practice purpose to see how many claims you got from a specific carrier, whether or not the reimbursement rate equals what you have in your contract, or to determine if it's worth keeping that insurance, because at one glance in this wonderful report that Healthie allow you to issue, you can see how much below your average payer maybe one insurance is. So it's time to go back to the drawing board with that specific insurance and renegotiate your fee. But one thing that I learned with time, and maybe it comes with time and experience as any profession, if you want to go into negotiation, you always have to know that you're not cornered in accepting a deal that is unacceptable. You have to know what your bottom line is, and you have to agree with yourself that it is okay to walk away, that you're smart enough and you have other target to make other means to make an honest living, and therefore to leave the table knowing that this was just not the right deal for you. Without that certainty about yourself, it becomes difficult to analyze the offer or to counteract that offer and feel good about that process. It allows you to master the fear that is totally natural. Everybody has that fear. Oh my gosh, if they say no, what will happen? You have to keep in mind that there are many insurances out there, and there are many ways to build a lucrative practice with self-pay. And also I want to share that right now my little baby is the chronic care, and partnering and collaborating with my local physician so we can help them bill with chronic care under remote monitoring. As dietitian, also certified diabetes educator, there's a huge opportunity there, because you can use the platform of Healthie to document these phone calls that you have with the patient, but the provider, who is the prescriber, will do the billing for you. So it's actually taking away all that worry, and it can become an ongoing revenue, because chronic care require and support monthly phone calls to those patients that you can do at the convenience of your office or even your home, because there is no longer a requirement of being under direct supervision of the physician. It's under general supervision. So Stephanie, how are we doing with time here?
Hi, Muriel. I think we are coming into the end. We're almost at our hour mark. We also have a lot of questions coming in. So if we want to, we have about 2 minutes if you want to finish
Yes.
the presentation, and then we can get into answering some of the really awesome questions we got.
Let's go with the question here.
Okay.
I want to hear the question.
Okay, great. So one thing, so from Jill asked how to obtain an NPI number. And I think, Muriel, we can tag team some of these questions perhaps. So you can elaborate, but the NPI number, before you fill out your CAQH profile, you're going to need an NPI number. That's your national provider
identification
number.
Yes. So what is important to know about an NPI? If you worked for an entity such as a hospital that was billing on your behalf, there is there is a possibility that they created an NPI for you, and you cannot have two NPI as individual, but they may have created an NPI with their address instead of yours. Your NPI is yours. It does not belong to previous employer, and therefore you can call and correct and make sure that you're the person who is reached directly regarding your NPI information. And you can use that same NPI to fill out future forms such as with Medicare or any other insurance. So it's very important because a lot of dietitians have run into roadblocks with when they want to remain employed part-time and start a private practice, and they realize that then NPIs seem to be controlled by their previous employer. No, it's yours. Even if they created it for you, your NPI is personal to you, and you have total control over what information is shared regarding your NPI. And it's public record, by the way. So be careful what address you give. If you do not want to give your personal address, they do not accept PO box. But if you can use an office address of a colleague, for example, that might help you.
Yes, and I think another question that had popped up also regarding the MPI, you can get an MPI number as an individual, but also a lot of dietitians, if you start an LLC, and correct me if I'm wrong, Muriel, but you can obtain an MPI number for your practice, for your under your LLC.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're having any questions, someone did mention that they were having issues with credentialing and they were told they made a mistake and needed to start an LLC. You don't, as far as I understand, you don't have to be an LLC to accept insurance, but there may be an issue perhaps with this.
So if they have a group NPI but they don't have an LLC, that might be an issue. We have to be consistent in the type of information that we share with insurance. If you want to be a sole proprietor, then have an individual NPI. It's a little difficult to switch when you're already in motion. I personally think that if you have a vision of your business to someday take on other providers, so you're free on your vacation or you expect to have children or to grow your practice in multi-provider, I would go ahead and create that LLC and I would get a group NPI. The other benefit of a group NPI that I heard from other dietitians is that some panels are more likely to accept a group NPI, seeing it as a larger entity and also to give preference better rate than if you're a single provider. So it has some pro and con there to be a individual NPI or group NPI.
And regardless of your choice to register for your MPI, it's very simple. You go online,
yes.
Just Google search MPI, and there's a registry. It's an online portal, and you just, it takes a couple minutes to apply for a number. And I believe you receive your number in the mail within about 1 to 2 weeks. So you will want to do that before you fill out your CAQH profile. And you'll also, as Muriel had mentioned, want to obtain professional liability insurance because you will need this for your CAQH as well. So both of those things you're going to want to do the month before, a couple weeks before you fill out your CAQH profile so you have this information ready for you.
Great answer. Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Next question. This is from Kritika. Is an EHR platform necessary as opposed to using Word documents? And I can address this one for Kritika. An EHR platform, essentially, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a secure online portal where you can do your charting. You may have one if you work in clinical, the hospital may have one, but you can also use, there's many different EHR platforms. So the benefit of using an EHR is one, that you have to keep your clients' private information, their health information secure, right? It's part of HIPAA and we must be compliant. When we use things like Word documents to document on our clients, it's stored locally on our computer, and our computer is at risk. It can be lost, it can be stolen. So someone can access that information, and we're not keeping our clients' information secure. Versus when you use an EHR and it's an encrypted platform, it's a HIPAA compliant platform, you know that you're following guidelines there. It's also important when you think about insurance audits, and maybe you have something to add to this, Muriel, but depending on your state, you are required to keep your client's information, your charting notes, on file for many, many years. It could be 7 to 8
Yes.
years. And if you're having Word documents or written papers, when you think about storing every single client's piece of documentation for 7 to 8 years, you must do that. And God forbid you ever have to go under an insurance audit, you're going to want to refer to your notes. So an EHR is a very easy way to store those notes. Even if you archive a client, the notes are still there, they're not deleted, and it saves you a lot of time and a lot of headache.
Stephanie, what I have found also is that being in private practice means you have to wear a lot of hats. And you have to be able to switch from being a clinical person to being an entrepreneur. And if you have paperwork everywhere, it's hard to keep up with everything. So I personally like to keep everything that is clinical and relevant to patient care within one platform, which is Healthie, because that's where I can access everything at one finger. And another benefit of Healthie is that they have the provider app that I may use if I'm not in my office, but I need to take a telehealth conference, or a patient send me an email, for example, with the latest blood work. I can use my phone to take that document from my email and save it under the document of Healthie and delete that email, because I trust Healthie better from a HIPAA compliant standpoint than my email server, which is a Gmail account.
Great. Okay, thank you, Muriel. Next,
you're welcome.
Then, let's see, we have a question about the CAQH profile, which you perhaps know, Muriel. Sometimes when you fill out the CAQH profile, it gives insurance companies permission to see your information and verify your information. So the question is, if you go on there and you see that insurance companies are looking at your profile, what does this mean, and should you follow up with them?
CAQH will send you a notification that an insurance company view your information. So it seems that you get the notification retroactively. If you have an option to just keep it open to all providers of insurance from the CAQH, and then you can also confirm that on the document that you signed with the insurance, either online or you have to handwrite a form and fax somewhere. There's always a box there that you check whether or not you allow that insurance to access your CAQH. But you know who is accessing your CAQH. You get notifications, so it's not like they're just peeking into your data and you know nothing about it. Mm-hmm. It does not affect your credit report either.
And you should know which companies that you have filled out applications for.
Yes.
So you will know that they'll be going through the process and looking at your CAQH profile.
Yes. I don't think I would do it without CAQH. It saves you so much time because most insurance nowadays use CAQH.
Yes, and it will be a requirement, so it's something that you should do. It will take a couple of hours, as Muriel mentioned, to fill out that profile, but if you have all the information sort of ready, your resumes, your dates, your insurance, you can go through it, pretty quickly and get it done within a couple of hours. And just to note as well, if you fill it out, you will be prompted every couple of months. I believe it's every 3 months to review your profile and attest it. you must do this. So make sure that you go in, make sure there's no changes that you have to make, and hit the reattest button. You'll get an email prompting you to do this, but don't forget to do it.
Yes. Another part of CAQH that I have added recently is your bank account information for insurance to know where to send the money when they pay for claim. So it's an add-on there in addition for them to take you on the panel that you can release, and I find it useful.
Okay. We have quite a few more questions. Muriel, if you're fine to keep going, we can try and
yes, I am.
the rest of them, because they are really good and very, you know, I think everybody will want to know the answers to these. This one, perhaps we can both answer this one. So a few people wrote in asking, how does insurance work with telehealth? This is a complicated question.
Yes, it's very complicated. First, I think that as provider, we need to know the law.
Yes.
Every state may or may not have a statute describing what the telehealth coverage should be. In Texas, since January 2018, all commercial plans that have to meet the requirement of ACA as well as state statute must cover telehealth just as office visit. So it's really nice because sometimes they have not changed their policy, and I had some denied, and I just quoted them the statute and it went through. Now, it's always about those special case where they're self-funded and they make their own law. If your state does not have a statute and they make their own rules, then it's one case at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So telehealth gets a little tricky in that you can bill. So, and some other people have this question. So if you see a client, let's say I'm in New York and I see a client in New York, and perhaps I see them in person, but I also, you know, they asked if they could do a virtual call. If you want to know if that client is covered for virtual services, you're going to have to call, and you might want to do this from the beginning when you verify benefits. You call their insurance provider. Just because they have Blue Cross Blue Shield does not mean that you're going to get the same answer or that they have the same plan as another client with Blue Cross Blue Shield. One client may be covered for telehealth services and one client may not. So when you call to verify benefits, you can ask, is the client covered for telehealth services? Each insurance plan, perhaps they may have their own specifications. They may require you to use a specific platform to conduct your telehealth calls. They may require that your initial session is in person, but you know, subsequent follow-up sessions are covered virtually. So there's not a straightforward answer on this. You're going to have to call the insurance panel for every client to verify telehealth services. Get that reference number, and then when you're creating your claims, when the CMS 1500 claim, that's the claim that you create to submit to the insurance company, there is usually a modifier or a place of service code.
So to talk about that modifier, some insurance will use the place of service being 02 for telehealth, and will require you to or not to add the modifier called GT. It was used by Medicare until last year, and I think more and more insurance are no longer using the JT. But that's a reason why I added these codes right here, the 98, 966, 967, and 68, because those can be lucrative bypassing the video aspect of telehealth, because those codes are for telephone call. Mm-hmm. And the chronic care management is also through telephone. So if your state does not have a strong statute regulating telehealth, and you find that you really want that reach out other than one-on-one face-to-face, a middle of the road approach is to take those phone calls with those legitimate CPT code. So inquiring about whether the insurance covered for them, and or not is important when you negotiate your contract.
And that is similar to a question from Sean, but a little bit different. When you're billing insurance for a client that perhaps you see in your home state, but they have insurance from another state. Muriel, can you address, I believe I know the answer to that question.
Yes.
You can
So it depends. Some companies have employees all over the US. So they have a comprehensive program where it may be Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, but the patient live here in Texas. I will have to file my insurance with the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas because my contract ultimately is with that panel. And they forward my filing to Illinois, and Illinois pays for it through my banking system. So that's how it works. Because if you try to find who the ID of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, they're going to tell you that you're not in network. You're only in network within your local region, and that's who you have to file. Now, it's only if that policy is global and cover your state. If the person used to live in Illinois and got an insurance out there through ACA and moved to Texas, I do not think that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas will have anything to do in passing on to Illinois. It's going to be denied.
Mm-hmm. And so it's generally you should submit the claim to the local provider for the client. And is that number is usually listed on the back of the card as well, their local,
yes.
Their local office.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So you can verify. A good question would be, is this a nationwide network coverage? And usually it is.
Great. We have a few more questions, and I just want to let you know that people who did ask about Medicare, there was quite a few questions about that, and we can get to that in a minute. Yes. We had a quick question from Berta. She's already contracted, but she didn't review the fee schedule. Is it too late to try and negotiate the fee?
I'm sorry, Stephanie. Would you mind to repeat?
Yeah, sure. If you've already contracted, like you had mentioned, I believe with Cigna, and you didn't request a fee schedule, is it too late for someone to try and renegotiate the fee?
It's never too late. It's hard to negotiate if you just got the contract. You're going to be more likely successful in negotiating if you waited a year or two, because in addition to explaining why those fees are not acceptable, they're also going to look at how many claims you process and whether or not you are someone that they want to stay in business with. So if you just had a few claims with that insurance company, you may continue to just take the hit because you get paid by other providers. If you had to accept a lot of claims, now that's an asset to show that you have seen that many patients, that they fee are not comparable to your local market, and there's a possibility that you may drop them because you can no longer stay in business with those fees. That's your bottom line.
Yes. Next question. Let's see. Sorry, guys, just some questions. One from Rosemary. She's been trying to get in network with United Healthcare for years, but they say that their panels are full. However, she has a specialty, and there aren't a lot of dietitians in private practice in her area. So she has written to them to try and justify the need for services.
So the question would be, is her specialty covered by United Healthcare?
I believe it's eating disorders.
Eating disorders. So I would inquire whether or not they include eating disorder coverage. Here in Texas, eating disorder is covered by United Healthcare, but I don't know other state. It would be relevant because at the end, if they don't cover for the service, I wouldn't chase that insurance. I would try to reach out to a person that actually has a name, to really push customer service, not to have a generic email like intake@uhc.com, but to actually have a network coordinator for the area, someone that you want to engage in a conversation. If all fail, I would try to get their headquarters, their local address. It's also on their website, and send them a certified letter that you're requesting that someone reach out to you to discuss the need of your region. If that fails, then go to the state insurance commissioner and see what they say, because then it becomes a consumer issue. If you can argue that there is a need in your community, that the insurance cover for that service, but do not have the adequate, the network adequacy, then they will take over and question the insurance as to why you're getting denied.
Mm-hmm. Another question, a quick question from Kelly, we just touched on a little bit, also specializing in eating disorders, and knows that not all insurance companies reimburse, but are there any plans that do? This may depend on the state that she's in, but Muriel, in your experience with the plans that you accept, are there ones that generally do cover for eating disorder services?
No, but if you Google like Aetna eating disorder benefit, you may find that it's public domain, and it gives you the national policy for all commercial plan, and that's something you can start inquiring and give you an idea of which payer you should go after. Yeah.
Yeah. And then quite a few people wanted to ask about how to credential with Medicare and how to bill Medicare. Do you want to share your experience with Medicare?
Medicare has been my best payer. If you can accept patients with diabetes or CKD, and I was a dialysis dietitian for 10 years, so it's a population that I really enjoy working with. I'm also a CDE. I have found that it's a slam dunk because they have very few codes that they accept, and I have very few denial from Medicare. The thing is that the patient have no copay and no deductible, so they're faithful to come back to their session, and it's a good ongoing revenue. It's a patient that also has a chronic condition that will never go away, so you can schedule a 6-month follow-up or 1-year follow-up, and it helps you to build your calendar with long-term expectation to continue that relationship with that patient. I highly recommend to be a Medicare provider, because also it pays better than a lot of commercial plans. Hello?
Sorry, muted.
Yes.
Also on Medicare. So credentialing with Medicare, the process is similar. Do you go through Medicare, or do you go through CAQH as well when you're credentialing with Medicare?
I believe Medicare required me to go through CAQH, and you have to find who is your MAC. The MAC is the entity that basically got assigned the payment in your region for all the Medicare claim. And for example, in Texas, my MAC is Novitas, but the whole country is divided into MAC. And the Novitas has its own website. So you have to request a login on Novitas to be able to follow claims, for example, to see why it was denied, or if you need to resubmit that claim. If you want to inquire about whether service would be covered or not, then you also go back to Novitas. So you don't work directly with Medicare. You work with the MAC that got the contract with Medicare that covers your region. It's one more step. So you have a login with CMS and you have a login with your MAC that you have to create. And the payment system for automated payment will go through Novitas, not through CMS. So you have to fill out the form to get your EOBs and to get your payment automatically onto your bank account with your MAC.
Great. And which, someone asked how to bill Medicare. So two quick questions on that. One, Muriel, what codes do you generally use with Medicare? And then two, do you create your CMS 1500 claims through Healthie and then submit them to Office Ally, or do you submit them directly to Novitas, your local?
I submit them through Office Ally for Medicare. And why? Because Office Ally will be free if you submit more Medicare claim than commercial claim. Otherwise, it will be at least $39 a month to process your claim through Office Ally. But the code that I use with Medicare are strictly these, oops, let me go back here, it was this one. So I use the traditional 9780203. I do not do any group, but you may. And then the G270, the G271. Actually, you know what? I have to take that back. I made an error this morning when I updated my slide. It's G0270, G0271. I apologize for that. But
Okay.
those are the code that I use. So I generate the CMS through Healthie, and I send it to Office Ally, and they take care of it. And the money comes on my bank account.
Great.
And when it comes, I can generate an EOB with Office Ally to see where this payment come from, and I can update my system with Healthie on the clients that I got paid for.
Great.
Medicare, something to know about Medicare is that it takes a little longer to get paid. Sometimes it's 3 to 4 weeks. Other payers, my fastest payer is Blue Cross Blue Shield. It has a turnaround literally of 3 days. So it's something maybe to take into account. If your payer has a lower fee, but you have a lot of patients at that fee and they cover well for your services, you never have much denial, I would stick with those fees. I would not rock the boat. Why? Because it's a good relationship, and maybe 1 year or 2 years after those fees, you have a very strong leg to stand on to go back to the negotiation table and let them know, you know, I'd love to work with you. I see a lot of your patients. We're getting good clinical outcome, but we need to upgrade those fees.
A few other questions for you, Muriel. Someone asked specifically, what is the code S94704?
So the S9470 is a code that describes nutrition counseling. It is not billable by Medicare, but many commercial plans will accept the claim, and the fee schedule is usually higher for that service built under that code than if you use the traditional 97802. That's why I added on my list of code to check the fee schedule, but you also have to ask whether there is a default rate attached to it and whether it's billable by unit per day or by 15-minute increment, so you don't get a denial or your claim goes through, but the reimbursement for a claim that should have been $152 ends up to be a check of $19. And by the way, this is a true life example. It happened to me. So I'm happy to share my own experience so you don't make the same mistake.
On that same topic, and please ignore the sirens in the background, I am in New York City. Cindy said if reimbursement is based on 1 unit per day and you saw a patient for 60 minutes, do you claim the total 60-minute fee as the 1 unit per day?
In the case of 9470, I personal, since it's 1 unit per day and the rate may be a little less, I may do 45 minutes for them. So 45, if it's a flat fee, 1 unit per day, and I look at my other fee, I may do 45 minutes instead of a whole hour. Because it's 1 unit. No one tells you how many minutes you have to spend with your patient.
Mm-hmm.
And that means if you spend 20 minutes, because it's 1 unit per day, the definition does not say that 1 unit is 16 units. So you could actually bill the full fee of $152 for 22 minutes of actual time. It does not define how many minutes 1 unit is.
Another question on that, the sirens are going crazy here. One, how often do you receive denials from insurance? This attendee is concerned about not getting paid after meeting with the client.
So my denial is about 30%. And then it personally dropped to 10 to 12% as I resubmit the claim. So that's kind of what you can anticipate there. You have 30% that you're going to have to work on, and 70% just go straight, slam dunk. And I mean, among the 30%, it may be my own error. I may have billed with the wrong location, or it happens, you know.
And I think for people to know that claims will get denied, and it could also be an issue on the insurance provider's end, perhaps.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
So claims,
Yes.
you will get those claims back, but you can resubmit them, and perhaps you can resubmit it with the corrected information. You can resubmit it with a different code, perhaps the diagnosis code that you chose. So it could be a process, but even though it's denied, it does not mean that you cannot resubmit.
That's right. You have to decide if you want to resubmit as a new claim or as a corrected claim, if it's a corrected claim. And it's never good to submit before you get the answer from the insurance, because they will think that you're double dipping. So if you think that you made an error, unfortunately, you have to wait until you see how that bill was processed. And there's a claim number that you have to put onto the CMS form under the resubmission claim. And there's a code there, 007, to tell the insurance that this claim is replacing the previous one for that date of service. And on that second claim, you can change either the date or the location of service or the CPT code or the number of unit. Like for example, an error that I may have done is to put only 1 unit, when in fact I spend four units with the patient. So I get a check for $38, and I'm like, oh no. So I have to correct that claim, but I could very well, some insurance would accept the same day an additional claim, but usually I would be more successful to correct that claim, and then the insurance pay me for the difference of what they have not yet paid.
Great. Another good question is from Cindy. Do you need an EIN number for submitting a CMS 1500 claim?
No, they do accept your individual tax ID number.
Right.
So they accept your NPI or your tax ID number. I mostly use my NPI.
Great.
Yeah.
Quick question. What is a super bill for Fatima, which is a good question.
So the super bill is a billing entity that is embedded with Healthie when you cannot file a claim. The insurance is, will be denied. You can still submit it to the patient, but you need to get paid by the patient somehow. So you can submit a super bill when you get that claim denied. And if they want to appeal it, they have something to provide to their insurance. Mm-hmm. Or they pay you up front and you leave it to that. The beauty with Healthie is that you can issue a super bill and have it emailed. So you save on stamp and time to have to snail mail a paper, and so that they received it. Because you can set up your email to get notification when the email was opened.
And in general, a super bill is basically just a fancy receipt that insurance companies recognize. And so perhaps a client doesn't want to use their insurance, or they were told that their insurance won't cover. What you can do is you can basically give them this, send them a super bill after the service for each individual appointment with your code on that, and they can handle submitting it to their insurance company for a possible reimbursement. It's also a very good thing to do if you are not in network with their insurance provider or you don't currently accept insurance. So you can use it, even if you're not credentialed with any insurance panels, you can create a super bill, give it to the client, and they may be covered. They may be reimbursed for some out-of-network providers.
And the beauty with Healthie is, compare with the old-fashioned way to do it through PayPal. You would issue a billing statement and you take the money out of through PayPal. Well, PayPal will not transfer the information for accounting purposes to Healthie. When the credit card of that client is embedded into Healthie, they can directly pay, and then the account of that patient is automatically updated with the payment. You don't need to manually do that transaction.
And last question that I think we can get to,
yeah.
Or two things I want to ask you. A couple of questions coming through. All right, so one for Michelle. She just wanted you to elaborate on the chronic care services. But what we're going to request you guys to do, if you do have more questions about the chronic care program that Muriel mentioned, you can email her directly. Muriel, if you want to share what your email is. And I can
yes, so my email is Muriel Doyle, w@gmail.com. And hopefully I can come back, because I think it's totally compatible with the platform of Healthie to be a legitimate mode of earning. It could be very lucrative at the comfort of your house or your office, because it does not require specifics on where you have to be as a provider to place those phone calls. And another resource that I would like to share with you, and I think Stephanie will do that in the email with the recording of this webinar, is the reference of a colleague and esteemed friend of mine that offer a boot camp on billing and how to get on those panels. She's a very successful dietitian in Dallas. She is a coach for me. She's a very good friend, and I highly recommend their service. If you need that extra help and a group, a support of someone who is experienced to be a provider, but also the group influence on bouncing question over a certain period of time so you're successful in becoming a provider, but also in setting up your private practice. Thank you, Stephanie, for doing that.
Oh, thank you. And for everyone that does ask, Muriel's email again is Muriel, M-U-R-I-E-L, Doyle, D-O-Y-L-E-W
Yes.
@gmail.com. I'm putting it in the chat box so that you'll all have it as well. So you should see it now. I'm not sure how many more questions we can get to today. I think this just goes to show that there is so much to learn and so much knowledge here. For some of you whose questions we have not been able to get to right now, I will email out the replay, and you are more than welcome to respond with your questions, and me and Muriel will coordinate. I also want to let you know, and I'll include the sign up in the follow-up email I send you, but there will be another webinar next month, November 22nd, that you can sign up for. And this webinar will cover the insurance billing basics. So sort of the next step to this, a little bit further with your codes. So if you're still, not feeling confident about completing your CMS 1500s, what codes to use, there will be another webinar that you can register for. So I think that's all that we can get to for today. So again, the replay will be sent out a little bit later today. You can watch the full webinar. You can email back with your questions, or you can contact Muriel directly if you have questions on the chronic care program. And you can also sign up for the next webinar, which will tackle the billing basics and get you really confident in starting your own billing. Muriel, is there anything else that you want to add today?
No, I'm very grateful to have found Healthie. It has helped me to really set the practice the way I like it, and I'm very grateful for having an opportunity to share my experience with this audience. I hope it was helpful, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.